In the yesterday's class, we have discussed some basics about JDBC, how to execute some DML operation, a DDL operation, and a DQL operation. You have to execute a DDL query, data definition language. We use execute method. Execute method return type is Boolean value, whether the operation is successful or not. Execute update is used for a DML operation, which returns an integer that represents the number of rows affected because of the DML query. Execute query will return a result set which internally contains the data that is being fetched because of the DQL query, the select query. Okay, and in order to fetch the data from the result set, just what we do is we go for rs dot next. Okay, and rs dot next will give false when there are no rows to retrieve. Until there are some rows to retrieve, rs dot next will give true. Okay, and the result set contains, okay, and this while loop will be executed for a number of times. If the row size is 10, then this while loop will be executed for 10 times. And here we should get the values. We can get the values based on the column IDs or even column names. Okay, and now let me get some value for which the column doesn't exist. Just make it a reminder that this columns, the index of the columns in result set will start from 1, not 0. Only in case of result set, the column index will start from 1. Okay. Now, what are the number of columns? What are the number of columns present in the person table? 3. Okay. So now, what is the column index that I am trying to fetch? 4. Now, does this column exist? Now let me go for rs.getString. Does this column exist? Does the column exist in the 4th index? No. So let me try to compile. Okay, now let me go to the classes. Let me execute the application. Now what is this giving? SQL exception, which is tells that failed to convert into internal representation. Okay, okay, and at 36th line it is giving a exception. It tells like the 36th line, sorry, person name is a string. This is a error because exception because at this line, the 36th line, person name is a string, but we are executing that through getInt. So let me make it getString. Let me try to compile the application again. Press compile, go to the classes, execute the application. Now, it tells that invalid column index. It tells that it is a invalid column index. Okay, just because we are trying to fetch the index Okay, we are trying to fetch the element, or we are trying to fetch the data from the fourth index. So fourth index doesn't exist. Okay, for that reason it tells that this is a SQL exception with invalid column index. Okay, like that, if you try to fetch something which is invalid, then it will give a SQL exception. And okay, and there is another interface, the result set. Now let's consider, like, we know that there are person ID, age and person name. Now if there are 100 columns, or if we don't know what are the columns that exist in the table, if we don't know how many columns exist in the table or what are the columns exist in the table, can we fetch like this, get string or get int of something? If we don't know the number of columns exist in the table, or if we don't know the names of the column exist in the table, can we fetch the data from the result set? Yes or no? No. If you don't know the number of columns, or if you don't know the type of the columns, or if you don't know the name of the columns, we cannot fetch the information from the result set. So, to overcome the difficulty with the fetching of the data from a result set, we have another interface named result set metadata. What is metadata? Metadata is nothing but additional information. Okay? We have discussed about metadata in annotations. Metadata is nothing but some additional information. Result set metadata has some additional information about the result set. Now, even result set metadata is also an interface in Java.SQL package. So, let me implement it. Okay? Now, this result set metadata, okay, contains the additional information about the result set. So, to get the result set metadata, we should execute rs.get metadata. Okay? And this result set metadata contains the meta information about the result set. What are the number of the columns present? What are the number of the rows present? All this information will be there. Now, what we'll do is, while rs.next, we don't know what are the number of columns. So we cannot give directly like rs.get string of 1, 2, 3, like this. We cannot give this value hard-coded just because we don't know what are the number of columns. The columns, if the column count is 2, what happens? If the number of columns is 2, what happens? It will give an exception. So if you don't know what are the number of columns or what is the name of the column, then what we do is we use the result set metadata. Just how we can make use of result set metadata is, in the while loop, there is a method named get column count. There is a method named get column count. Get column count inside the result set metadata. We iterate. That means get column count will give the number of columns. In the for loop, we are iterating each and every column. Just I'll print like this. Okay. Just I'll get the count of the number of I'll get the number of columns from the result set metadata. I'll iterate in the for loop. So in the for loop, okay, each and every column information will be retrieved. I means let's consider like the number of columns are 3. How many times this for loop will be iterated? If the number of columns are 3, how many times this for loop will be iterated? 3 times. If the number of columns are 3 and if the number of rows are 2, how many times this for loop is iterated? If the number of columns are 3 and if the number of rows are 2, how many times this for loop will be iterated? 6 times. Just because if the number of rows are 2, how many times this while loop will be iterated? See, this while loop will be iterated depend upon the rows. There are 100 rows, this while loop will be iterated for 100 times. Okay? How it will be means, let's consider that. There are 3 rows. There are 3 rows. Let's consider like there are 4 rows. And we have person ID, person name, age. Okay? 100 A 20, 200 B 21, 300 C 22, 400 D 23. We have 4 rows here and 3 columns. Now, let's select. I have executed some select star from x underscore first. Now, how many rows will be retrieved? If I execute select star from x underscore person, how many rows will be retrieved? 4 rows will be retrieved. Now, the result set will be pointing to this set of rows. Okay? The result set will be pointing to the set of rows. The result set will be pointing to the set of rows. Now, while rs dot next. Now, are there any elements that select the result set is here? Are there any elements? Are there any elements in the result set? Let's consider this is the first iteration. rs dot next is executed. Are there any elements? Are there any rows in the result set? Yes or no? Let's consider that I am executing select star from x underscore person. Now all the rows will be retrieved and all the rows will be there in the result set. Okay? Now it is let's consider like it is the first iteration. If it is the first iteration, still 4 rows are supposed to be retrieved. Now within the first iteration, next method will be true or false? True, just because there are still 4 rows to be iterated. Okay? Now, what I am doing is I am writing a for loop for in I equal to 0. Now, I is less than or equal to result set metadata dot get column count I plus. In the for loop, okay, what I am getting is result set metadata dot get column name of I. Now what is the value of I? In the first iteration, what is the value of I? What is the total value of column count? What column count returns? What is the value returned by the column count? What, Sharat? Why you are not following? You are not able to get the things? Where you could not able to understand?
Yes, so I have to get the value for.
What is the method executing result set metadata dot get column count? Get column count means will it return the number of rows or number of columns? Number of columns. What are the number of columns here? 3. So this the column count is 3. Okay. Or else we need not get column name of I means. Okay. It will fetch the name of the column in the specific index. What is the name of the column in the first index? Person ID. So person ID column. And what I am using again, rs dot get string of I. Now at present the result is pointing to this row. Now get string of I. What is the value of I in the first iteration? It's not 0, it should be 1. In the first iteration the value is 1. Okay? And rs dot get column count of 1 means what is the in the first iteration I value is 1. So result metadata dot get column name of 1. Okay? What is the name of the column the first index? Person ID. It will lead to person ID. And again rs dot get string of I. What is the value of I? 1. Okay? And in the result set, what is the value in the first column? What is the value in the first column? 100. Okay? And again this for loop will be iterated. I value will be 2 now. Okay? And rs will not get column name of I. Okay? I will be 2. And what is the column name in the second index? Person name. So person name column here. Okay? And again I will become 3. Okay? And what is the name of the column in the index? Yes. And what is the value in the third index? The third column of the row? 20. So 20 will be 20. So once this for loop will be iterated. Now for the whole for loop, if the for loop is iterated thrice means we have retrieved the values of 3 columns in that row. Then how many times, let's say like there are 4 rows. There are 4 rows, how many times this for loop will be iterated? 12 times. Just because this for loop will be iterated for each and every column of the row. There are 4 rows, 4 times while loop will be iterated and 4 into 3. 12 times this for loop will be iterated. Understood? After the 4th iteration, this is the first iteration which contains the first row values. In the same way, the second iteration, ID is 200, name is B, age is 21. The third iteration, ID is 300, age is C, name is C, age is 22. The fourth iteration, ID is 400, name is D, age is 23. Like that, the iteration will happen using the result set method. Understood? Everybody? What's your understood? That's how it happens using the result set metadata. So, if you use result set metadata, then we need not to bother about the column names or column indexes. Okay? I equal to 1, I less than equal to column 1. Understood this program, everybody? Just what we are doing is first this while loop will have the row information and this for loop will be used to retrieve the individual column values in that row. Okay? While loop will have the whole row information. This for loop will iterate n times for a number of columns and each the first iteration this column value, second iteration this column value, third iteration this column value. This is for a row. And even for the second row, first iteration is column value, second this column, third this column. In the third iteration, first is, second is, third is. The fourth iteration, first is, second is, and third. So 12 times this for loop will be iterated for 4 rows, just because the number of columns is. Understood? That's how it will behave. Okay, if you want, you can run this program. It's also important. If I don't know the number of rows, let's consider like there is a person table, but I don't know the number of rows. But I want to fetch using select star from something. But how I can do that means using result set metadata. Okay, even though we don't know the number of rows or the column names, we can fetch the data from the result set using result set metadata. Okay? But this result set metadata should be used only when if we don't know the name or the number of columns. If we know the name of the columns, then it should be better to go for direct result set only than going for result set metadata. If we don't know the number of columns or the name of the columns, then we go for result set metadata. Otherwise, it will be better to go for result set directly. Why to create another and why to execute a for loop? It's not required. Okay? We go for result set metadata in general only when if we don't know the number of columns and name of the columns. And yes, write down this example, later on we will discuss. Over? Now even I think connection also has a metadata. Let me see here. Okay. In connection also there is a method named get metadata. Even in the connection interface we have a metadata which returns a database metadata. Like a metadata for result set, this is a metadata for a connection. This is a metadata for database details. Okay? How we can fetch, if we have a connection object, then we can retrieve the information. Let's consider like we are not creating the connection object. We are getting the connection object from somewhere else, some third party. Let's consider like we are not creating the connection object. Here we ourselves are creating the connection object. But there might be scenarios where we may not create the connection object. The connection object might be retrieved from third party sources. But if the connection object is there with us, then we can find the database information. How we can find the database information means by using database metadata. Okay, the connection object contains a method to get the database metadata. Like a result set, even a connection object also contains a metadata method which will return of type database metadata. Result set.get metadata will return result set metadata. Connection.get metadata will return database metadata object. Even database metadata is a interface in Java.SQL package. We have already imported. Even database metadata is also an interface in Java.SQL package. Okay, this database metadata is also an interface which contains the information about the database. Now, let us see what is the information that may exist. See, these are the database metadata values. Okay, whether the database is read only, what is the username? Let's see here. Okay, get URL gives the URL of the connection. Okay, get username will give the username of the connection object, the username that exists in the connection object. Okay, and we can get even the password also, and we can get even the driver version, the driver name, the driver class name. Okay, all the database properties can be fetched through the database metadata. Okay, all the database related properties. Okay, all the database related properties can be fetched through the database metadata. Whether the database is read only, what are the number of tables present in the database, what are the number of database objects present in the database, all the things. All the things can be fetched here using the database metadata. What are the number of tables present, what are the number of stored procedures present, what are the number of views present in the database, all the information. For each and everything, we'll have a specific method in the database metadata. Let's consider like we should get the driver name. What is the driver class name? We'll use this method, get driver name. We'll return the driver class we have used to create a connection object. The connection object is coming from some third party. We don't know how the connection was being created, and like what is the driver that was used for connection, and what is the URL that was used for connection, and what is the username and password that was used for connection. All the details can be fetched in the application itself using the database metadata object. Understood? There are many scenarios where we will not create the connection object. Connection object will be created by some third parties, third party classes, third party entities. So in that case, if we have a connection object, we can find the database information by making use of database metadata. Just execute connection.get metadata. It will give the object of database metadata by executing the methods like get driver name or get username, get URL. Okay, of database metadata, we can fetch the particular information. Understood? Like that, the database metadata will be used. Some of the interviews will be asking, I'm not creating a connection object, I'm getting connection object from somewhere. If I have a connection object, can I get what is the URL used or what is the username used for the connection object? Okay? Yes, by making use of database metadata. If we go for connection.get metadata, it will return database metadata which contains all the methods to fetch the information. The connection properties like username, password, URL, all the driver class name, all the things will be available in database metadata. And even database metadata is also an interface in Java SQL package.
It means that if we will write a system.out.println and dbmd, then it will print all that information.
No, if you print dbmd.get URL, it will print the URL. You should execute the getter method, no? If you execute, let me execute a simple thing.
By writing only the reference part, it will not print anything. By writing only the reference, it will not print anything.
No, if toString method is overridden in the anonymous inner class, then it will print the values. But in general, if we have an object, we'll get the particular value. We will not use the object to print the value. We'll get the value from the object, like what is the URL, what is the username. That's the realistic usage. You can go to SRC, compile the application. Your classes, execute application. So This gives the URL that we have used to create this connection object. Is this the URL that we have used? Create the connection object? Was that the URL we have used? Database colon oracle colon thin colon something colon 1521 colon xc. This is the URL. So once we have a connection object, we can get any database property. Understood? Just we need to execute the getter method. If you want to get username, we will execute get username. That's it. We'll get the username of the. If you want the database properties, we can get the database properties. Understood? And there is another concept named updatable result set. We'll discuss that later in the coming examples. Okay? Please don't write. There is a concept named updatable result set. We'll discuss later on, but keep the features of result set in mind. Okay? Keep the features of result set in mind. We'll discuss updatable result set sometime, most probably in the current class or the next class, but at that time remember all the concept of result sets. Okay? Now the next concept is how to interact with the database using a prepared statement. Now we have seen how to perform database interaction, how to perform a database transaction. Okay, how to perform a database transaction using a statement object, a statement, con.create statement. Now we shall see how to perform a database interaction or how to perform a database transaction using a prepared statement. Okay, right now we want to connect the database. First we have registered the driver and we have gone for driver manager.get connection by passing URL, username and password. Once we have the connection object, we used to get the statement object. Okay, using con.create statement. Once the statement object is ready, we used to execute the execute update or execute query methods. That was our flow of executing a database application. Now we shall see why and how and when we should use this prepare statement in place of statement. Okay, this prepare statement is also an interface in Java.sql package. So first we should import that. Prepare statement is a interface in Java.sql package. Now, before discussing what the prepare statement will do, let me try to insert some 100 rows. Let me try to insert 100 rows into the database. Okay? Now what I will do is, let me try to do that using a statement. Now, understood my requirement, I need to insert 100 rows into the database, into the table of the database. So what I will do is, I will write a for loop. It's a simple for loop. Okay, rather than creating 100 objects or 100 different stuffs, what I will do is, In each and every iteration, what man? What are you doing? Am I joking anything? That's what I told in the morning. Play when you play and work when you work. Okay? Now, I'm trying to insert some 100 rows and the person table contains ID, name and age. What I will do is, I'll insert 1, P1, 1, ID, name, age, 1, P2, sorry, 2, P2, 2, 3, P3, like this, 100, P100, 100. ID, name, age. I will insert in this format. Okay? To insert in this format, what I am doing is, understood my requirement? Okay? I'll write a for loop. Values I. PRFN 1, PRFN 2, PRFN 3. Like that I want to insert. Otherwise, what I will do is, for this kind of requirements, if the string content is regularly changing, we should use a string buffer, but let me use a simple string. Otherwise, let me use a string buffer. First, the string buffer is empty. Values, first I, okay, that means the ID, and then comma, PR hyphen plus I. That means, let me explain. Let me write the logic first. Again, comma. Okay? Right. And again, but here it should be open in single quote, it should be closed in single quotes. Now let me take the first iteration. In the first iteration, what happens? This will be common, right? Insert into HU% values, and what will be the I value? In the first iteration, 1. Sorry, 1. Okay, 1. After 1, what I am doing? Comma. Okay, 1, comma. Then in single quotes, PR hyphen plus I. For string, if I open I means it will be appended. What is the value of I? 1. And after giving this, I am giving another single quote, comma. What share are you getting? Okay. Again another single quote, comma. Okay. And again I. What is the value of I? 1. And after 1, what I am doing? I am executing the close notice. So does this form an insert statement? Does this form a proper insert statement? Yes or no? Yes. So now after executing, what I will do is set length of 0. Why I am doing this means in the next iteration the string buffer should contain empty. Understood? See, set length of 0 means I am clearing the string buffer. Understood? See, in the first iteration this is the at this execute update. What I will do is,
So what is SB?
SB is a string buffer object. Sorry, it is query now. Okay. Now query dot toString. The string buffer can be converted to a string using toString method of the string buffer. Understood? So I am setting the length to 0. Now what happens? Let's consider I'm in the first iteration. In the first iteration, what happens? At this point, the query is like this. Okay, and we are executing the query using sb.toString. And then what I am doing? I am making the string buffer to I am making the length of the string buffer as 0. That means again, if it comes to the if it comes to 40th line in the second iteration, what's the value of the string buffer? I am asking what is the value. I am not asking what is the length. What is the value of the string buffer at this point in the second iteration? What is the value in the string buffer at this point in the second iteration? What is the value of this query object? What is the value present in the query object at this point in the second iteration? In the first iteration, at this point, what is the value? It's the insert into x_person values of something. And what I am doing, set length of 0. Set length of 0 means I am flushing out the content in the string buffer. So that at this point in the second iteration, what is the value in this query? It's empty, it's not 0. The length is 0, but the string is empty. Again I am inserting the values. Understood? Okay, likewise I am executing some 100 queries. So, understood everybody? Understood the logic? Sure? Just tell what we are doing here. Speak out. See, many of the faces here are known to you. If you are not able to speak out in front of the known faces in a very cool environment, how you could able to speak out in front of the interviewer? Is this your confidence levels in English? I am a person known to you for 3 years. If you are not able to speak in front of me, in front of your friends, obviously for any person, if he goes to the interview, he will be having a little bit tense environment. In that tense environment, how you could able to tell the answer? Why you are feeling that much shivering? Why your mouth is shivering? Will your mouth shiver when you crack jokes on me? You will speak loudly like anything, but why you could not speak in front of me in the class? Just tell the answer perfectly, confidently. Are we inserting the record into the string buffer here? Are we inserting the record into the string buffer here? Are we inserting the record into the string content here? What we are doing here? Speak out, man. I'm asking a question and you are thinking for 10 minutes. Will you think like this in front of the interviewer? He will kick out you. That's why you are coming out from the interview for 5 minutes and you are thinking it's great for you. Whatever you know, just tell it clearly and confidently. Speak out. Whatever you know, you tell them. You tell it first. Then I'll explain what you went wrong, where you went wrong. That means if you are asking me to tell once again means you did not listen to the class. Am I right? Did you listen to the class now? Yes? Then tell the things what did you understand from the class.
We are inserting 100 data in
Is that we are doing straight away? Is that the thing that we are doing in the for loop? What we are doing in the for loop? In the for loop, what we are doing is, first we have created a string buffer whose reference is query. So, in the for loop, we are preparing the query to be executed. We are preparing the query to be executed. So, first I am appending insert into this content. I am appending the content up to here. And then I am appending I. So, first iteration the value is 1. And then I am appending comma, so that the value is comma. And then I am opening a single quote, I am appending this content, so that single quote, this content. And then I am appending a single quote and comma, so single quote and comma. And then I am appending I, so that the value of I is 1 in the first iteration. And then I am appending closing parenthesis. So this closing parenthesis will be there. So in the first iteration, the whole insert query is constructed through the string buffer. We are appending the content of the query to the string buffer. So we are execute update using string buffer.toString. String buffer.toString, what it will return? It returns a string. So does execute update method expect a string? Does the method execute update expect a string? Yes. The execute update method expect a string which is a query. So we are preparing that query. So again, after executing the execute update, this row will be inserted into the database, and again I am making the query length as 0. Query length is means at this point of time, in the first iteration, at this point of time, the query will be like this. And after executing this, the query will be empty. And again in the second iteration, the same thing. Values 2, 2. Like this it will go on for 100 iterations, and 100 different rows will be inserted into the database in the table HCL score person. Understood? Understood? Now can you explain? Keep it in mind. Whatever the knowledge we know, we could be able to express it perfectly. Even if we know 200% knowledge, and if you are not able to express 1%, that's a waste of knowledge. The knowledge is waste. The knowledge will be a water in the sea. We cannot do anything with that. Even if you know 10%, if you could be able to express it 100%, then that guy will be better than you. Even though you know 200% and he knows 10%. So, we should express whatever we know, whether it is right or wrong, we should express confidently. Especially in interviews. In interviews, rather than what you know, what you express will make a big difference. Even though you know 10%, but if you are able to express 100%, it's far better. You are telling that confidently. Confidence levels will make a big difference in interviews. English speaking skills and confidence levels will make a big difference. It's not like you can win the interview with just confidence levels and this English speaking skills, the soft skills. But you should have ample knowledge. If you have ample knowledge and if you have big English speaking skills and the best confidence levels, okay, then you will be selected for sure. Even if you have English speaking skills in a very perfect way, but you don't have confidence levels, you cannot win the interview. Even if you don't have a better English speaking skills, whatever you tell, if you tell straight away without any breaks, with a perfect confidence levels, then you can win the interview. Okay? While telling the things to me who is known for 3 years to you, okay, you are breaking your voice. Just, I'm not telling to a specific person, this is to everybody. Express your confidence levels in front of the interviewers. Don't lose your confidence level in any situation. Even you told something wrong and you recognize that it was wrong, don't lose your confidence levels. The interviewers will not expect that you should answer to all of the questions. If you ask 30 questions, will not expect that you should answer for all the 30 questions. That doesn't mean that, let's consider like if you answer 25 questions, there are more chances for the interviewer to select you. But doesn't mean that you should learn only 75% or 50% of the subject. You cannot expect what are the questions asked by the interviewer. So, you should learn the subject up to the extent that you know. And by God's grace, if the interviewer asks the questions that are known to you, then that's fine. And I can assure you, in 98 to 99% of interviewers, the interviewers will not go out of the boundaries of our classes. Even you guys also might have seen that. Those guys who are attending to interviews might have seen that. 98% they will not go out of from our discussions. So, if you are following the discussions perfectly, then you can win the interview. You can win the first interview itself. But I can assure you. But I don't tell that, don't restrict yourself for my discussion itself. You can gain the knowledge from any other sources. But don't go for interview without this knowledge. This is a very basic knowledge, and damn sure most of the questions will be asked from this things itself. But don't restrict yourself to this discussion itself. Learn more things. But don't leave these things. Don't learn new things without knowing these things. Okay? Turn a little bit serious, right? But it's a fact. So, we are preparing the query, we are executing the query. So, after executing the query, let me print what is the query that I have executed. Okay? Now, let me try to execute the application. Sorry, this SB, where is SB? Where I have used SB? Sorry, this query. Okay, now go to the classes, execute the application. So, at last, insert into HTML person values 100, PR underscore hyphen 100 and 100. Now, let me see at the database level. What are the values in the table? So, there are 100 plus rows in the table. Like there are 100 rows in the table. Understood? Now, how many times this execute method is triggered for inserting 100 rows? How many times we have executed this execute update method for 100 rows? How many times we have executed this execute update method for 100 rows? 100 times. Okay? If you use a statement, what happens is, in order to execute a query, okay? In order to execute a query, okay, there should be some execution plan. Okay? How this query should be executed. In order to execute a query, there should be some plan of execution. Okay? How this query should be executed. Okay? Now, how many times the statement is executed, or how many times the execute update method is called? How many times the execute update method is called? 100 times. Okay? Now, how many action plans will be there? Will it be only one action plan, or will it be 100 action plans? For each and every execute method execution, a statement will create a separate action plan. A statement object will create a separate action plan for the execution of each and every execute method. Confused? See, we are executing execute or execute update or execute query. For any of the method, for each and every execution of the execute or execute update or execute query, the statement object will create a separate action plan. Okay? Now, these queries insert into h_person. Let's consider like these queries. These are the queries that I have executed. Let me copy them. If you see all these queries, are these queries supposed to have the same action plan, or are these queries are supposed to have different action plan? The pattern of the queries is the same, so one action plan is enough. The values are different. The values are different, but the pattern of the queries is the same, right? Insert into table values, value 1, value 2, value 3. Insert into tables values, value 1, value 2, value 3. Insert into table values, value 1, value 2, value 3. The pattern of these queries is the same. The pattern of these 100 queries is the same. If the pattern of the 100 queries is the same, one action plan is enough. But what statement will do? For each and every execute method execution. For each and every execute method. Okay? For each and every execute method. What the statement object will do means it will create a separate action plan. That means for each and every query execution, it will create a separate action plan. Now how many action plans are created here? 100. But the query structure or the pattern of the query is the same. If the pattern of the query is the same, logic ideally, in an ideal scenario, the action plan should be only one. Let's consider that. If I am inserting records only into now, are these two queries having the same action plan? Yes, or will it be different? Are these two queries have the same pattern or different pattern? Different pattern. Just because here we are inserting the columns into all the rows. Here we are inserting the columns into specific rows. So the pattern is different. Now, if this pattern is different like this, then it is correct to have different action plans. But if the pattern of these 100 queries is the same, why to have a different action plan? Why to create a different action plan for each and every query? Understood? Understood the thing? See, the statement.execute method will create a separate action plan for each and every query execution. So, if you are executing 1000 queries, 1000 times the action plan will be created. The plan of action or the action plan will give the information how to execute the query. What is the format of executing the query? But this action plan will be created 1000 times if you execute 1000 queries using a statement object. To overcome this difference, so the performance was reduced like anything. So for each and every query, if you create the action plan, and as per the action plan, if you execute the query, then 1000 action plans means it will degrade the performance. So to overcome this difference, we have a prepared statement. Let me show you how we can do the same thing with a prepared statement. Let me show you how the same thing can be done using a prepared statement. Now, let me comment it. Understood this? Understood this program and understood the disadvantages of using a statement object for multiple queries with the same action plan? If there are multiple queries with the same action plan, if you use a statement, what happens? A new action plan will be created for each and every query execution, which is not required. 1000 queries are there with the same pattern, one action plan is enough to execute the 1000 queries just because they are of the same pattern. But if it is a statement object, it will create an action plan for each and every query execution, which is not the correct thing. If the query pattern is same, but just the values are changing, then we should create only one action plan, and as per the action plan, we just change the values. That's it. But how? How we can do that? Means for that requirements, we go for a prepared statement. Let me show you how the same program can be executed using a prepared statement. Okay? So we have seen that prepared statement is a sub-interface to statement. I have told just now that prepared statement is a sub-interface to statement. Let me cut this. Okay, let me paste this in some other line. Okay, and let me execute the same example using a prepare statement. Now let me delete the values. Let me delete all the values. And rows, some one or two, all the rows are deleted. Now let me use a prepare statement for the same. Now you have to create a prepare statement object. Even prepare statement is also an interface. Even the prepare statement is also an interface in Java.sql package. So we have already imported that. So you have to create a prepare statement. Connection dot execute a method prepare statement. You have to what is the method that we execute? You have to get the statement object. You have to get the statement object we use create statement of the connection. You have to get a prepare statement object. We execute prepare statement, which will give the prepare statement object. Now, while giving the prepare statement itself, while executing the prepare statement itself, we will pass the pattern of the query, like this is the pattern of the query, and these question marks are called as placeholders. These question marks are called as placeholders. These question marks are called as placeholders. In this query of the query pattern of the prepare statement, the question marks are called as placeholders. And the prepare statement object will create an action plan while constructing the prepare statement object itself. An action plan is created for a prepare statement while constructing the prepare statement object itself. For a statement, the action plan will be created when we execute the execute method, either execute or execute update or execute query. But the action plan will be created for a prepare statement while creating the prepare statement object itself. The action plan will be created for a prepare statement object while creating the object itself. Now, where we are getting the object using the prepare statement method. Now, let me use the same thing. See, the action plan will be created for a statement. The action plan will be created when we execute the query. For a prepare statement, the action plan will be created when the prepare statement object is created. Okay? For the first placeholder, what is the value? For the first placeholder, what is the value? For the second placeholder, what is the value? Okay, and for the third placeholder, what is the value? Let me make it as I into 100, so that the values will be 100, 200, 300, 400, 500 like that. Okay, the IDs will be 100, 200, 300. Let me make it 10, so that the IDs will be 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 like that. And the ages will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 like that. Second one is a set string, just because name is a string. Third one is a age, which is an integer. And so for the first placeholder, in the prepare statement we can set the values. In the prepare statement we can set the values. Like, what is the value for the first placeholder? One means we are setting the value to the first placeholder. What is the column in the first placeholder? In the first column in the insert statement is ID, person ID. Second is person name. Third is age. So the value to the first placeholder is an integer. The value to the second placeholder is a string. The value to the third placeholder is a integer. ID, name, age. Just what we do is, so how many times the action plan will be created here? How many times the action plan will be created here? Only once. Only once when we are creating the prepare statement object. So for 100 queries the action plan is the same. So will it increase the performance for this scenario when compared to statement object? Yes. In this scenario it will increase the performance.
So what do you mean by that action plan? Your plan means what we are doing, we are just putting the value in that buffer and just hiding, and then we are executing. Here we already just given the insert into extra person. It is specific things constant. We are not doing anything with that.
But in order to execute a query with a database, the driver should have some plan how this query should be executed.
Actually, I just want to know that what do you mean by action plan?
Action plan means the driver class will recognize what is the kind of the query and how the query should be executed.
So what I got that it is different from the previous one. That what we are doing each and every time we are putting the value in the buffer, appending it, and then executing.
That is one of the advantages. That is not the primary advantage. Definitely, that is also an advantage. Okay, I am going to tell that in the next as the next point. But that is not the primary advantage, or that is not the primary intention of prepared statement. Construction of query is not the primary advantage or the primary requirement for prepared statement. The action plan, how the driver, how the query is being executed, that action plan, okay, will be the constraint here. Okay, see, to execute a query, first you should find whether it is a DDL operation or a DML operation or a DQL operation. That logic, that plan of action is called as an action plan. It's a logical terminology. It doesn't physically exist. The physical existence is the code. The code that executes the query. How to execute the query? There should be some code executed. To execute a query, some code should be there to verify whether it is a DDL or DML or DQL. That is a plan of action. Whether it is DDL, it will have one channel. If it is a DML, it has another channel. If it is a DQL, it has some other channel. So, which channel should choose means it should execute some logic. So, that will be done only once in case of prepared statement. Okay? But that will be done for each and every query for a statement. Then, if we have 1000 statements which have the same pattern, that logic will be executed only once in case of prepared statement. But that logic will be executed 1000 times for a statement. That is the primary concern between a statement and a prepared statement, not the construction of the query. Okay? Understood, everybody? Understood? So, let me try to, first what we do is, while creating a prepare statement, we give the pattern of the query, how the pattern of the query will be. Okay? We'll give the pattern of the query, how the pattern of the query will be. We can use any character as a placeholder, but the standard placeholder is a question mark. In 99.99 application, the placeholder will be used as, question mark will be used as a placeholder. Where? Names of the columns. In the values, in the parentheses of the values, will you give the names of the columns or values of the columns? Okay? These are the values of the columns which will be changing from one query to another query. But the pattern will not be changed. See, the values in the first place, second place and third place will be changing. But the pattern of the query is the same. The pattern of the query is the same. The plan to execute the query should be the same. So, what we do is, in the for loop, we will set the values to the placeholders. So, in the first iteration, what is the query that is executed means? Insert into HCO underscore person values. Okay? Values. Okay? Now, what is the value to the first placeholder I am giving? What is the value to the first placeholder I am giving? I into 10. 1 into 10 means 10. Comma. Since it is set in, it will directly give the value. If it is a set string, it will give the value in a single quote. Single quote hyphen 1. Comma. What is the value to the third placeholder? I. The value of I is 1. This is the query that is executed in first iteration. Are we constructing this query? Are we constructing this query, or are we just giving the values to the placeholders? Are we constructing the query in this format, or are we just giving the values to the placeholders? If it is a prepare statement. If it is a prepare statement, just we give the values to the placeholders, and the prepare statement itself will construct the query as per the pattern. We just give the values to the placeholders, and the prepare statement itself will construct the query as per the pattern. Okay? That is the second advantage of using the prepare statement. Okay? We need not to construct the query explicitly with the values. Just if we have a pattern, and if we set the values to the placeholders, the prepare statement itself will construct the queries. Okay? As per the values that we have given to the placeholders. But if we see, if we compare this code with this code, this for loop with this for loop, you can understand the difference. What we are doing in this for loop and what we are doing in this for loop. What we are doing in this for loop, we are manually constructing the query. But are we here manually constructing the query here? We are not constructing the query. Here in the prepare statement, already we have a template or we have a pattern of the query, and the pattern of the query has some placeholders. This pattern of the query has some placeholders. What we are doing is just we are giving the values to the corresponding placeholders, so that automatically the query will be constructed by the prepare statement and it will be executed. There are two advantages here. Only one action plan is enough for any number of queries of similar pattern. The second advantage is we need not to construct the query. We can just give the values to the placeholder. That's it. The construction of the queries will be done by the prepare statement only. We create a template or we create a pattern of the query and we will give the values to the placeholders. That's it. The query will be automatically replaced. The placeholders will be automatically replaced by the values that we provide. Automatically that will be done by the prepare statement only. These are two primary advantages of going for prepare statement. Understood? So let me execute the same with the prepare statement. This PSTMT, it's not PSTMT, it's prepare STMT. So press compile. Let me go to the classes. 46 null pointer exception. Sorry, database metadata is not there. Okay. But there are 100 rows created here. It was a null pointer exception just because this database metadata was there, but this database metadata is still null. Okay, leave about the exception. Let me delete the rows again. So there are no rows now. I have deleted the rows, so there are no rows now. Okay. Now let me re-execute the application after compiling this. Let me remove this. Go to SRC, compile the application, go to the classes, execute the application. This application was executed, and let us see. So 100 rows are being created by the prepare statement. Now, which will be efficient way? Either by using statement or a prepared statement. Prepared statement. We go for prepared statement only when we are executing multiple queries with the same action plan. Okay? If we are executing multiple queries with different action plans, then we should go for statement. There is no other option. If we are executing multiple queries with the same action plan, or we are executing multiple queries with the same pattern, then we go for prepared statement. If you are executing multiple queries and those multiple queries have different patterns or different action plans, then we should go for a statement object. There is no other option. Which one is better means it's based on the requirement. If we are executing multiple queries with the same pattern, then we go for a prepared statement. If we are executing a single query or multiple queries with different patterns, then we go for a statement. Understood? When we should go for a statement? When we should go for a statement means when we are executing only one query or multiple queries with different patterns. There are multiple queries with the same pattern, then we go for a prepared statement. That's a very important difference. And note down the differences between statement and prepared statement. It's a very important question in JDBC. What is the difference between statement and prepared statement? So actually, if you want to write the application, you can write. Do you have this application in your notes? Do you have this application in your notes? Yes or no? Everybody, yes? Make it execute update. Those who want to note on the application, you can note it down. And those who have already not done the example, just list out the differences between statement and prepared statement. Prasad, what are you doing, man? What are you doing? You should take those things down. Okay, now what is the difference? What is the first difference between statement and prepared statement?
We have in statement we have a different action plan.
The first difference is statement is a super interface to prepared statement. Okay? Statement is a super interface or prepared statement is a sub interface to statement. So this will be the first difference. And the next difference is, what's the next difference? If you go for a statement, for each and every query execution there will be a separate plan of action. If we go for a prepare statement, there will be only one action plan or one pattern for all the queries. And if you go for a statement, the action plan or the pattern will be created at the time of execution of the query. But if you go for a prepare statement, the action plan or the pattern will be created when we create the prepare statement. If you go for a statement, we should construct the query explicitly with the values. We should append the values to the query string explicitly. But if you go for a prepare statement, we can give a placeholder and we can set the placeholder values dynamically. To go for a prepare statement, we can create placeholders and we can give the values to the placeholders dynamically using setting, using the setter methods. Using the setter methods, we can give the values to the placeholders dynamically if you go for a prepare statement. And when we go for a statement means, if the pattern of the query is different, or if you are executing only one query. Either if you are executing only one query, or if you are executing multiple queries with different patterns. If you are executing only one query, or if you are executing multiple queries with different patterns, then we go for a statement. If you are executing only one query, or if you are executing multiple queries with different patterns, then we go for a statement. If we execute multiple queries that belong to the same pattern, if we execute multiple queries with the same pattern, then we go for prepare statements. Understood? When we want to go for statement or prepare statement means, it depends upon the requirement. As we told, if there are multiple statements, multiple SQL statements with different patterns, then we should go for a statement. If there is a single SQL statement, then it is better to go for a statement. If there are multiple queries that belong to the same pattern, then we should go for a prepare statement. We cannot tell that prepare statement is the best or statement is the best. It depends upon the requirement. Okay? We'll wind up for the day, and tomorrow we'll first discuss about batch updations. The next concept is batch updation. How to execute multiple statements as a batch, and why it is required to execute multiple statements as a batch. Okay? First we'll discuss why to execute multiple SQL statements as a batch, as a group. And then we'll discuss how we can execute multiple statements as a batch or as a group. And then we'll discuss updatable result set. Okay? And if we could able to complete the updatable result set tomorrow, then the next concept for us is might be, it will be callable statement. A callable statement and how to execute stored procedures. So, in order to discuss callable statements, we should have the knowledge of stored procedures. Before discussing callable statement, I will describe a simple stored procedure and I will explain how it will be. Okay, how this store procedure can be executed from a Java application. Okay, and the execution of views will be the same. Like tables, we can execute views. Okay, execution of views will be the same like tables. We need not to explain it once again. The execution of views from Java application will be very similar to the tables. Okay, we need not to explain that once again. And we'll see after updatable result set and batch updations. If we have time, we'll discuss how to go for a store procedure, how we can create a store procedure in a Oracle server, and then we'll discuss how we can execute that store procedure from a Java application. Okay, and tomorrow, are you guys going for interviews? Are any guys going for interviews, walk-ins? Are any guys, or are you guys planning for walk-ins tomorrow? Yes? Some of the guys, at least, might be planning. Okay? If we have plans for interviews, then we can discuss the things in evening. Anyhow, it's better to discuss in evening, so everyone will catch up the class. So the next class will be tomorrow evening 4:30. Is it okay?